Morning, everyone. It is 9 o'clock, so let's get started with our catalogers training session for November. I'm Jennifer Baugh. For any of you who do not or have not met me yet, I am the new Share Bibliographic Services Manager. Okay, do any of our other staff have anything they need to say before we go any further? Okay. So if you have any questions, please do go ahead and ask them in the chat area. We will have someone monitoring that, and they'll make sure that whoever's speaking sees the questions and gets those answered. All right, so for the share update, the Solus app was recently released, and that was, all right, can anybody hear me?
I'm hearing you, Jennifer. This is Edie.
Okay, thanks, Edie. Okay. Perfect. So the Solus app was released back in October, and thus far we've had over 1,600 downloads and a lot of great reviews. If you get any wonderful stories or anything, pass them on to us, and we'd love to be able to highlight that somehow. There haven't really been any committee meetings. We have some coming up, so stay tuned for more information from that in our next catalogers meeting in January. Member Day is on November 18th. If you haven't registered yet, we are fully booked, but there is a wait list, so you can try to get on that wait list. And you can do that through L2. Let's see. If you watched Edie and Shelley's cataloging presentation at ILA, you can submit that on the Share website for CE credit. So go ahead and do that, and I'll get it recorded. And then lastly, if you watched either of the videos for last month, but you didn't watch them through Moodle, go ahead and get that information to me on the Share website, and I'll get that recorded as well. I am going to stop sharing.
Good morning, everybody. This is Edie Elliott. Just have a little bit of an update for the Bibliographic and Cataloging Standards Committee. Basically, just that we have 2 vacant seats. So if you are at all interested in serving on the committee, we'd love to have you. So the chair of that committee is Donna Shaw. If you want to get in touch with her, if you're interested in being part of that committee. We meet quarterly. The next meeting is January 21st, I think. And at 10 o'clock, we meet by Zoom. And actually, even anybody who's interested can sit in on those meetings as an observer. And for certified share catalogers, that does count toward cataloging CE. So you're welcome to sit in anytime. But if you're interested in being a committee member, please get hold of Donna Shaw. I think the next part on the agenda is the miscellaneous section, and the first one is me. And I'm going to share my screen and bring up Polaris. Okay, hopefully everybody can see my screen. So I'm just going to talk about just something to be careful of while you are doing your editing in Polaris, that you don't change the record owner. And I'm going to show you where that's at. Because we've had a couple of recently where people have not been able to access the record, and it's because the owner of the bibliographic record had inadvertently been changed. So I'm just going to show you. So this is a record in Polaris. I'm going to try and make the font a little bit bigger. But the part I'm talking about up here is the owner of the bibliographic record. You see, in this case, the owner has been changed to Shelbyville Main Street Elementary. So the owner of the bibliographic records that you can access should always be Share. But it's easy to change this without even realizing it. You know, it's just a drop-down menu. You can click on any of these and change this without even realizing it. So just kind of be careful. Really, the owner of this bibliographic record should be Share. So I'm going to change that one. So really, I just wanted to tell people to be careful about that. Yeah, looks like we might have a duplicate, but I'll check on that later on. Anyway, if nobody has any questions about that, I will stop sharing and turn that over to Linda. If I can find where my stop sharing is. All right, are you guys still seeing my screen or no?
No, you're good, Edie.
No.
Oh, okay. So somehow I stopped sharing without even realizing it. Okay, well, Linda, over to you.
Good morning. Let me get my screen shared here. All right. I'm Linda and I am a cataloger at the Carbondale office. And today I'm going to tell you about some of the enhancements that OCLC has made to the bibliographic formats and standards. And the first of those is called query searching, which is similar to what you find in your favorite web browser or your favorite shopping site, where when you click in the search box, like I just did, it gives you drop-down options. And those options are based on machine learning, and they improve over time when there's more searches and more selections done. So when you start typing in, you see it gives you suggestions, and we're going to search for music. And it pulls up 122 examples here. Now that's a lot to wade through if you're looking for some specific information. So that brings up the next enhancement, which is called faceted chapters. It's this section over on the left-hand side. And if there's a lot of them, there'll be a drop-down arrow where you can see all of them. And that way you can more target what information you're trying to find. You can actually choose more than one of these boxes, but I'm going to click on the 2XX field. And then it gives us 10 results here. And that's a lot easier to go through to find your information. And these enhancements were actually made by OCLC based on feedback from users, which is always nice to know that, suggestions work. So Edie, I'm going to stop sharing.
Okay. I am going to jump in and do the new cataloging features in Leap. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. I put it together as a PowerPoint, so it's easy to download and reference, and I will get that up on L2 as soon as our meeting's over today. Okay. There we go. Okay. So with the upgrade to Leap 7.0 that occurred last month, we now have the ability.
Jennifer, it's not sharing. It's not sharing.
Oh, okay. Odd.
Now it is. Thank you.
Okay. That was odd. Thank you for catching that for me. Okay. Still there? Or did it go away?
Nope, it's there. Thank you.
Perfect. Okay. So with the upgrade to Leap, we now have the ability to create, edit, copy, and copy bibliographic records. We can now import records into Leap. We can do bibliographic bulk changes and then create and view issues and parts in serials. So it's really simple to create a bibliographic record in Leap. You start on your home screen, go to New, and then Bibliographic Records. Sorry, my circle moved somehow. And then you will select a template if you're going to be using one, and if not, just press OK and continue on. You'll get a new bibliographic record work form. You have the option to either display in text. If you want to or not, please don't change the owner. Keep it as share. And then you can add any mark tags or edit any mark tag data. If you're using a template, anything you have set up in the template will appear. And then press save if you want to keep it, or close, and that will just get rid of the record itself. Okay. If you're going to edit any, you can just find and open it. You select mark, add mark tags, or edit the mark tag data, and then either save or close. And I will show you an example of that on the next slide. So I found this record in LEAP yesterday. I did go ahead and make the change, but I'll show you what I did. So once I opened it, I selected Mark at the top of the screen, and then I noticed that the 650 down towards the bottom, Romance Fiction American, was actually a fast heading. So I selected the box next to the 650 and then selected delete tag back at the top, and that got rid of it. If you're going to edit it, however, and you just needed to change something in it, it would bring up a box and you could change the tag or the indicators or the data in the field and then just press OK. So a lot of options. Okay. And then if you, like I said, if you do the delete tag, that tag will be removed as shown in this photo, and you can just press save. If you realize that you did click the wrong tag and you're like, oops, I didn't mean to delete that, you can press close and it won't save it. When you do save a record, it will go through the same validation process as in Polaris. It'll look really similar, just hit continue or make any adjustments as necessary. Okay, if for some reason you need to copy a bibliographic record, you can do that as well. At the top of the bibliographic record screen, there's a button that says Actions, and then you select Copy, and that will create a new copy that you can then go in and edit. Let's see if I did that. All right. If you are doing, you can modify tag data by doing any of the following. You can edit the leaders now or an existing control field. However, you can't have two 008s in the same record. You can edit an existing data field tag. You can add a new control field, new data tags. You can reorder them, or you can delete a tag. Okay. Adding is really simple. You can click, editing is really simple, as I've said before. You can just select the tag that you want to edit and then select the edit tag button, make any changes, and then press OK. You can also add 006 and 007 fields. When you select insert on the record, those two options will appear. And when you select the right one, the next box will give you the valid options that you can choose from in a drop-down menu. Okay. You can add a new data field. So you're going through a record and you realize you need another subject heading. You just go to insert data field. You'll enter the tag number, and then if there's appropriate indicators, and then the data in the box, and press OK. If you like keyboard shortcuts, there are now options that you can use in LEAP. I personally did not try them out. I'm not a huge keyboard shortcut fan, but if you do try them and they don't work, please let us know. Okay. And then importing MARC records is also really simple. It's very similar to Polaris. So when you're on your home screen of LEAP, where it's the blank screen with a quote, if you go up to Utilities at the top, click on that menu, and then select MARC Import at the bottom. You'll get a box where you'll choose your import profile. Make sure, for our share libraries, make sure you choose one IHLS MARC Import. Use this one, please, just like you always do in Polaris. Then you'll press Select File, and you'll choose your records that you've previously downloaded from OCLC. Same process as when you do it in Polaris. If you use a flash drive, just keep doing that and you'll be good. Once you've chosen your import file, you'll select Continue. And then at the top of the screen, you'll see a button that says Import, and you'll press that to start the process. If you need to see the cataloging processing list that sometimes you look at or that automatically pops up in Polaris, up at the top of the screen again, you'll select Utilities, and then cataloging processing. Mine automatically goes to MARC Import. If yours doesn't, you'll see at the screen that pops up a box that has bibliographic bulk change or MARC Import. Select MARC Import, and you will be able to see all of the import jobs that have been going on. You can sort them by clicking on the column headings, or you can filter by searching in the box that is on the right-hand side of the screen. Okay. We can also now do bibliographic bulk changes to record sets. You can do it to non-MARC leaders, MARC tags. You can also now edit the 006 and 007 MARC tag fields that way. If you need specific instructions on that, I've included a link on this slide that you'll be able to access when I've uploaded it so that you can then download it. And if you have any problems or questions, let us know. Okay. And now you can also create and view issues and parts in LEAP for serials modules users. You can create a single issue or part record without having to predict the next set in the publication pattern. You can also view details and properties for any subscription issue or part record in LEAP. So same thing, if you need specific instructions, they are available from this link, and then let us know if you have any questions about those. Does anyone have any questions with this very quick overview of our new changes to LEAP?
Jennifer, there is a question in the chat.
Oh,
Says, can we print labels? We have not found that.
no, I have not been able to find anything talking about label printing. Hopefully in the near future, we'll have that again.
And that's the only question that I see.
All right, then I'm going to stop sharing my screen.
Oh, I'm sorry. There is another question. It just says, can you send the slides of the presentation? But you're going to be posting those, right?
Yes, I will be posting those to L2 as soon as this meeting is over. So give me till about 11:30 and they should be up.
All right, that looks like all of them.
Perfect.
Okay, this is Pam. I think I'm next, talking about the CMC. So our next online with the CMC is actually this week. It's on Thursday. Where's Waldo? Cataloging maps. We had to move it up a week because next Thursday is IHLS member day. So we did not want to have a conflict with that. You can search in L2 for all of the upcoming online with the CMCs. If you select IHLS as the sponsor, select webinar as an event type, and cataloging as the topic. But the rest of our series are in L2. So we've got December, January, February, March, and maybe April. They're all the third Thursday. So if you have any questions about that, yes, April. And if you have topics that you'd like us to cover in the future, just please email the CMC at illinoisheartland.org. I'm teaching the RDA AV class that started this week. But if you have any Moodle classes that you would like me or the CMC team to offer in the future, we are always open to suggestions. So please share those with us as well. And I guess let me know if you have any questions.
Okay, this is Edie again. I think it's me next. It's something that Pam said reminded me that there, besides the online with the CMC coming up this Thursday, next Thursday, although it is member day, there is an Ask QC session at 3 o'clock. So if you register for that and you can't attend, you will get a link for a recording. So that's another opportunity. Okay, so I am going to share my screen. And we're going to talk about some changes to MARC coding that have just recently been validated or installed an OCLC connection to validate. So we're going to go through some of these changes, just the highlights. We're not going to look at every single one, but just the ones that are really going to affect us the most as far as our cataloging. So we're going to be talking about some new lists that are available now in the RDA registry website and the codes, the source codes for those lists. And we're going to be talking about some bibliographic format changes with MARC. And I forgot, Linda, can you monitor the chat for me in case there are questions pop up? Thank you. Okay, so the first thing we're going to talk about is new RDA registry lists and source codes, and there are 3 of them. There's a new list for aspect ratio designation. The code for that is RDAAR. There's a new registry list for mode of issuance, which is RDAMI, and a new registry list for sound content, and the source code for that is RDA-SCO. So some of these lists relate to some of the changes that we're going to be talking about coming up. All right, so next, the bibliographic format changes. So first of all, there's been some changes to some codes in the fixed field element, and specifically the fixed field element type of continuing resource. In OCLC, in the fixed field, you see that as SRTP. In Polaris and the 008, if you expand it, you see that as type continuing resource. So the definition of code P has been revised a little bit. All of these definitions I'm kind of paraphrasing out of, or taking little bits out of the definitions on the in bib formats and standards. So you can see the whole thing there. I just didn't want to copy it all onto the slide. So for periodical, code P, basically this definition has been revised to say that there are now some new codes that are a little more specific than just a general category of periodical. So you can still use it for this broad category of any publication, and it talks about this includes journals, magazines, newsletters, and blogs. So you can use this code if you just want something general. Otherwise, the preference is to use the code for the specific type of periodical that you have. So there are actually, this has become much more general code. So we're going to talk about some of these more specific codes. So one that's been established is G for magazine. So definition is a periodical that addresses non-scientific, non-professional general interest topics. So you can use that. If you can't, if that doesn't fit what you have, you can always use that general code of the P. And then a journal, which addresses readers interested in a specific subject or a specific profession, often includes original research and current developments. And then a couple of other new codes, one S for newsletters, generally the kind that are issued by an organization about its own activities or its own members. And then a directory, which is just a list of people or locations, organizations, and that it's just kept in some kind of order. So there's a couple of other new codes that I don't have on the slide. One is H for blogs, and one is R for repositories. You can see those definitions in bib formats if you want to look at those full definitions. So that's the good news. We have some more specific codes for some of the things that we catalog. The bad news is these codes won't validate yet in Polaris. So for Polaris, we're just going to have to keep using the general code P until these more specific codes are available. We've got some more validation that we'll be doing in Polaris in an upcoming update. So the next one we're going to talk about, the next thing that's changed, is the mark tag 046, which is the tag for special coded dates. And what's changed is it's got a new first indicator. So prior to these changes, you didn't code the first indicator in the mark tag 046. So now you have some options. You can leave it blank. You can code 1, 2, or 3 for whatever dates you're talking about if they apply to a work, an expression, or a manifestation. And the second indicator is going to be blank like it was before. And if you're not sure when you're using your cataloging, if you're not sure which one of these indicators might apply, then you can just leave it blank. Some new subfields that have been validated now for the 046 is subfield X for a non-public note, something that you don't need to display in the pack, but something that you want to keep for your information you need for yourself or your organization. Z for a public note, something that you do want to be able to display in your pack. And then subfield 3, if this date applies to a particular component of the resource that you're cataloging. So as an example here, the 046, we left the indicators blank. I wasn't sure what type of resource this applied to, whether it was a work, an expression, or a manifestation. So I just left it blank. Subfield K is a beginning date or a single created date. And then I've got subfield Z is a public note that will display in the pack to say this is a release date. And then the subfield 2 is the one for the code that indicates the format of how our date is formatted in the subfield K. These new indicators are not yet going to validate in Polaris. So for now, we'll just leave this blank. You can do it in OCLC, but in Polaris, it's not going to validate. You can add the public or non-public notes if you think that applies to what you have or you want a note to display. You can use that subfield 3 to indicate a particular component of the resource that you're cataloging if you need to. Again, these aren't the new indicators are not going to validate in Polaris, but it is okay, and you'll probably start seeing them in OCLC records. Next is Smart Tag 08082, sorry, which is the Dewey Decimal Classification number. Just added a little bit of a change to the definition of the field. There's more to that definition, but really the part that's changed is the part that says whether accessing the Dewey through either the electronic version or the printed version. They've also added a new first indicator 7, which we aren't going to use in our cataloging. All right, so then they've changed the definition a little bit of subfield 2. Subfield 2 is the edition information. That's where you put what edition of Dewey you got your information from, or what you see in the OCLC record, what edition of Dewey the information came from. So the change in the definition is how you format that subfield 2, and that depends on whether or not you're getting that Dewey number from the print version or from the electronic version. So first of all, here it's showing how you format that subfield 2. If you're going to add this subfield 2 in your record, this is how you format subfield 2 if you got that Dewey number from the print version. So you're going to use 23, this is your edition number, then slash for the language of the edition, which in this case is English, and then a slash for the year that that edition was published, which in the case of edition 23 was 2011. So in this 082, second indicator 4 indicates that this number is being assigned by an organization other than the Library of Congress. So this is what we would use if we were going to enter a Dewey number in an 082. So then the second part of the revision of this definition is how you format that subfield 2 if you get the information from the electronic version or from Web Dewey. So it's basically the same. You're still going to put your version or your edition number, which is 23, your language, which is the code, which is English, but the date is the date that you actually saw this on the web, the date on which the number was assigned. So in this example, this is coming from the 23rd edition. The language is English. It was assigned on the 25th of October of 2021. So for us, you can use, when you're adding a Dewey number in a bib record, you can either do add it in an 082 with that second indicator 4, or you can add it in the mark tag 092, which stands for a locally assigned Dewey call number. If you use the 082 with the second indicator of 4, then you have to put in that subfield 2, and you need to format it the way it's shown in the example based on whether you get it from a print version or whether you get it from Web Dewey. If you're putting your Dewey number in an 092, it's optional to include that subfield 2. And if you do include it, you need to format it the same way that you see it in the example for the 082. If you're editing records in Polaris, you don't need to change that subfield 2. If you're doing an OCLC record and you're going to use that 082 with the second indicator of a 4, you need to add that subfield 2. If you're going to use the 092, then it's optional to put in that subfield 2.
Edie, we have a question.
Okay.
It says, what if the OCLC record doesn't have a subfield 2? What info should we use?
Well, if you don't have the subfield 2, you don't have any way of knowing what edition that number comes from. So I guess you just have to leave it off. Any other questions so far?
No, that's been it so far.
Okay. All right, so the next thing, there's a brand new mark tag called 334, which the name of that tag is mode of issuance. And the definition is it reflects whether a manifestation is issued in one unit or more than one unit. Indicators are blank. There are 3 subfields. Subfield A for the term for the mode of issuance, subfield B for the code. Actually, there are some other subfields that are valid for the field, but these are just the ones that you're most likely to see probably are the ones that we will be using if we start using this field. Right now, it's optional. There is actually an RDA registry list for this mode of issuance terms. There's not much on it, and it looks like it's kind of under construction now. Looks like there's going to be doing some changes, and there is no list of codes for the subfield B. So nothing to put in that subfield B or the source. So again, this is not going to validate in Polaris. It was not added in this last release, but it should be added in the next release that we update. So right now, you don't need to start using this. This field's optional. If you see it in an OCLC record, you don't need to delete it. You can add it if you want, but you don't have to. And again, it's not going to validate in Polaris right now. I think eventually some of these things that we're looking at are probably intended to take the place of some of the things that we code currently in the fixed field elements. So maybe there's more information on that coming. We'll see. All right, another new mark tag is mark tag 353. And the name of that is supplementary content characteristics. And that is a way to code information of supplementary content like bibliographies, discographies, indexes, instructional material, either within the resource itself or in accompanying material. So the definition says this field applies only when the supplementary content represents a significant part of the resource described. So, you know, what you consider significant is, you know, it's kind of cataloger's judgment. So it says it's required if applicable. If you feel like your supplementary content is significant, then you do need to add this 353 tag. Indicators are blank. We've got some subfields that probably the most common ones we would be using. The supplementary content term and the subfield A, the code and subfield B, the source of that term, and then subfield 3 if you want to indicate a specific component of the resource that this applies to. So these terms are not coming from an RDA registry list. They're coming from a list by the Library of Congress, and there is a link to that list on the Library of Congress website in the bib formats entry for this new tag 353. And here's an example. So down at the bottom, mark tag 353, indicators are blank, subfield A. This supplementary material is a bibliography of the creator. The code for that is creator bio. Again, this field isn't going to validate in Polaris yet. After the next update, it probably will, but right now it won't. So for us, if you have something that has significant supplementary content, then you can use that 353. But if it's not, if what you have is like, just an index at the back of the book, or you've got a bibliography, you can still, if you don't consider it significant part of the resource, then you can still do it the way we normally do, either in the 500 and or the 504. And you still want to code those fixed field elements. There's nature of contents. You want to code the one that has the 4 positions for accompanying material, and then the index fixed field elements. So again, eventually, I think this may take the place of some of what we code up there in the fixed field. But we haven't gotten any real guidance on that yet, so we'll see. Okay, so these next couple of tags that we're going to be talking about are changes to what we're going to do in cataloging for video records. If you attended the presentation that Shelley and I did at ILA, we did talk about some of these changes here. So in the mark tag 344, which is the tag for sound characteristics, there's a new definition, or kind of a revised definition, that says specifications relating to the encoding of sound or the absence of sound in a resource. Before, we didn't code the absence of sound, and now we will. So this new subfield I is for sound content, and that's where you indicate whether your resource has sound or if it's silent. So there's a new RDA registry list called RDA sound content. The code for that that goes in your subfield 2 is RDA SCO. So you see an example of how you'll put it in down there. So 344 subfield I, there's only 2 terms in that registry list, sound or silent. So you're going to use whichever one applies. And then your subfield 2 for the code for the registry list itself. So if you're using a text string or something to add your 34X fields in your videos, could be to video records, then you should go ahead and add this to your text string. So for us, we're going to start using this 344 with the subfield I, in addition to putting that term sound or silent in mark tag 300 subfield B. And again, eventually, I think these 34X fields are going to take the place of some of what we do in the 300 and some of what we do in some other notes. So I think it's all, eventually it's all going to be in a 3XX field somewhere, I think. But for now, we're going to put it in 2 places, the 300 subfield B and the 344 subfield I. The next change for video records is mark tag 345. Moving image characteristics, there's 2 new subfields for this field. One is subfield C for the aspect ratio value. That's just those numbers that you see on the back of the container, 16:9 or the 2.38:1. You just record whatever's on your piece if it's there. There's no registry list for this subfield, so you're not going to have a subfield 2. The next new subfield is subfield D, the aspect ratio designator. And there is now a new RDA registry list for that, which is the RDA aspect ratio designation. I think it's only got 3 terms, full screen, widescreen, and I think mixed aspect is the 3rd one. So you're going to be putting that in your subfield D, no indicators. your term in the subfield D, and then your code in the subfield 2, and your code is the RDAAR. And you put widescreen in as 2 words, even if it's 1 word on your resource that you're cataloging, put it in as 2 words because that's how it is in the RDA registry list. If you happen to have one of those discs that has both a full screen and a widescreen version of a particular film, you'll put 2 345 subfield D, 1 for the widescreen, 1 for the full screen. Okay, so for our cataloging, we're going to start using this 345 subfield C and subfield D instead of putting those things in a note field like we were before. And again, widescreen we'll put in as 2 words. And we do not put widescreen or full screen or whatever as an addition statement in the 250 unless it specifically states it that way on your resource. So if it says widescreen edition or full screen version, then you can put that in your 250, but otherwise it goes in this 345 subfield C. Just a little reminder, we're not going to use subfield A or subfield B in our 345. Those 2 subfields are only for resources that are actual motion picture film. I see, Denise, you've raised your hand. If you want to unmute yourself and ask your question, you can. Otherwise, you can put it in the chat. Did anything go into the chat?
No, I don't see a chat.
Okay. Well, Denise, if you want to put something in the chat, you're welcome to, or like I say, you can unmute and ask your question. Okay, so here's an example of our 34X fields for, say, a Blu-ray DVD combo pack. So it's got all our usual, this combo pack apparently has captions or the SDH. So we've got the 341, got our usual codes that we put in. We've got our subfield I because these has sound. We've got our 345 subfield C with our aspect ratio, and then our 345 subfield D with our aspect ratio designation. So we are going to be doing a whole new presentation about video recording records, probably in one of the early sessions next year. There's been a lot of changes in video recording cataloging since the last time we did a session. So we will do a whole new one and get it updated. So, and this will all be incorporated into that. But in the meantime, I have done a new checklist for editing video recordings that I posted in L2, and that does have these changes in it. And that will be posted on the website, but it's also right now it's just in L2, so you can download it from there. Okay, just a few other marked changes. Mark tag 348, which is notated music characteristics. And basically the name has been changed. It was before called format of notated music, and the definition's been revised a little bit, some new subfields, subfield C and subfield D. 348 you'll use if you catalog music scores. And then another change to a mark tag is mark tag 383, the numeric designation of a musical work. And the definition of subfield A has been revised a little bit. So if you're cataloging music, probably want to take a look at those. Mark tag 546, the language note. The definition of the field has been changed a little bit. And that's basically because that definition references the 348, and because the name of the 348 field has been changed, then they just revised the definition of the 546 to put in the new name for the 348 field. And that's the same thing with the subfield B. Mark tag 852, they just changed the definition of the first indicator value, and that's because first indicator value has changed because that's where you put in a Dewey Decimal Classification number, and they're just reflecting the fact of whether that number comes from the print version or the electronic version. All right. Here's some places where you can get some resources with more information about these various changes. Are there any other questions?
I don't see anything in the chat right now.
Okay. All right, so I need to, so I think I'm next on the agenda as well. So I'm going to bring up my other. All right, so for October, because the catalogers training session kind of conflicted with the ILA conference, we didn't have an in-person meeting, so we just sent out a message asking people to watch 2 videos or 2 presentations from Online with the CMC, and then we would review them this month. So one of those 2 was the Online with the CMC presentation in September of 2019, and it had to do with series. So the title was To Be a Series or Not to Be a Series. So we're just going to do a little bit of a review and maybe a real quick Q&A just to kind of go over what was talked about in that video. And then if you have any questions, we can talk about that as well. So just a little bit of a quick review. Definition of a series is that it's a group of resources that are related. Each resource in that group has its own title, but it also has a collective title that applies to the entire group. And this group of resources may or may not have numbering.
Edie, there was a question
Okay.
about watching the videos. Can I still
Okay.
watch in a couple of weeks and get credit?
Yeah. Just make sure you put, you let us know that you did. Okay. So within series, there's a couple of different types. There's the author title series, where the individual parts of the series are all by the same creator. In this case, this example, Walter Mosley wrote all of the Easy Rawlins mystery books. So the series was established as an author title series under his name. Then there's another type of series, which is a title series, and where the individual parts of that series could be by any number of different creators. So an example of that is the Latino American History series by several different authors or creators. Then we have the series like phrase, which is something that you see on the resource and it looks like a series, but it's not considered a series title. Sometimes you'll find a series authority record that tells you to put this in a quoted note. Sometimes you'll see a series authority record that says it's not to be a series, it's not to be a quoted note, like basically ignore it. So it just depends on how whoever created the series authority record establishes it. And our example is Megan Tingley books. So when you're searching the authority file to find a series authority record, you want to search as a title. So you can do that either as a scan search or in the keyword numeric search area. When you bring up the find tool to search the authority file. So in a scan search, you're going to do, and that's a browse search. You're going to use either the word scan or just SCA, either one. And then you have to put in your index label, and the index label to find a title is TI:. So SCA or SCAN, either one, space, and then your index label, and then your title that you're searching for. If you do it down in the keyword numeric area, you just put in what you're searching for, and then you choose title in the drop-down menu of the index that you want to search by. For author title searches, use a couple different ways that you can get to those. One is by the title of the series, and the other is through the author's name. So the examples here are just the scan. These are both the scan search. Whether you do a scan search, which is a browse search, or whether you do the keyword numeric, that's really personal preference. The display of the results is different. So it's just whatever you like, whatever you get used to. These examples are just in the scan. So I did a scan search for the title, Blanche White Mystery. In my results, then I'm going to see this to say there is an authority record. It's not telling me, what the established form is. It's telling me there is an authority record that has that in it. I can also search by the author. So again, in this example, I'm doing a scan search for the author, which is Barbara Neely. And then in my results, maybe you can't see, it actually brings up two records. It brings up the one for her authority record for her name, and then the authority record for the series that she's associated with, or that was established as an author title series. So for author title, you can get to them a couple of different ways. All right, so that's just the quick review. Now we're going to do just some quick questions, just to kind of help reinforce things in our minds. So question number 1, if you come across a series statement in mark tag 440 in a bibliographic record, what should you do with that? So there's 3 choices. A, you do nothing, you leave it alone. B, you change it to a 490 with a first indicator of a 0. Or C, you check for a series authority record and you code accordingly. So just in the chat, put A, B, or C. And Linda, you just kind of keep an eye on what's coming in.
I'm getting C's right now.
C, okay. All right, and that is correct. You don't want to leave it the way it is, because 440 is an obsolete tag. It's been obsolete for a number of years. So you do want to change it. You don't automatically want to change it to a first indicator of a 0 in a 490, because you don't know whether the series that it's talking about is traced or untraced, or a series like phrase. So the correct thing to do is check to see if there's a series authority record and then code it according to what the authority record tells you. All right. Question 2, we've got the book Going to Grandma's House, published by Cottage Door Press, and it's got a series statement on it. Our series statement is an I Can Do It book. So we search the authority file for that title, and we come up with 2 series authority records that look like maybe they would work. So which series titles should we use in the bib record, either A or B?
I'm getting B's.
B, okay. And that is correct. Since we have the series statement, the series title qualified by the publisher, then that is the one that we should use in our bib record. So the next question is then, how do we code that? So we've got our series statement on the book, we've got our And I Can Do It book, and then we've got our series title from the authority record. So we've got 3 choices of how to code this in the bib record. So A, B, or C, put it in the chat, how you would code this in the bib record.
We can't see C, the second line in C.
B, okay. All right, so that is correct. Choice B is how you would code that. So choice A, you've got your 490 with your first indicator of a 1. Since we know this is a trace series, that is the correct first indicator. We put the series title the way we see it on the book. But you would not put your series title in a 130, even though it's recorded in a 130 in the authority record. Any authority record, the established form of the name or the title or the subject is always in the field that starts with a 1, but that's not what you use in your bib record to record a series title. So we're going to use the second choice, 490 with our first indicator of a 1. the series statement the way we see it on our book, then our series title goes in the 830 with the second indicator of a 0, the way we see it in the series authority record. So then, and I can do it book qualified by Cottage Door Press.
Edie, I don't think you understood what Linda was trying to tell you. We couldn't see the second line of your choice C, so obviously C wasn't correct for that reason, but
there is no second
see.
line. There is no second line in choice C.
Oh,
Choice
okay,
C is
because the
just
other
one
two
line.
had 2 lines, so that's
No.
what's confusing me. Sorry.
No, I'm sorry. I guess I didn't hear that correctly. No, there was only one line in choice C. And that is incorrect. Because if you have a 490 with the first indicator of a 1, you have to have a corresponding 8XX field. So that's one thing that's wrong with this. The other thing that's wrong is that it ends in punctuation, and you would not have ending punctuation in a 490 unless that's actually part of the series statement itself. So sorry if I misunderstood, Linda. Any other questions about this one? Okay. All right, let's look at this one. So to look at this and see if this series in this bib record is entered correctly. So we've got our 490 with the 1, we've got our series statement from the book. We've got our series authority record, and you can't see all of the record, but it is a traced series. And then we've got a series title recorded in the 800. So the question is that series recorded correctly in our bib record?
I'm getting no's.
Okay. And that is correct. The mark coding is correct. The 490 first indicator of a 1 has our series statement the way it is on the book. We have our 800 with our first indicator of a 1. We have our author's name, but the actual title of the series in the subfield T is not correct. That title is showing up in the 400 in our series authority record. So that's the unauthorized form of our series. The actual correct form of the series title should be Billy Boyle World War II Mystery. So they put the wrong title here in that subfield T. So again, what you put in your 800 field needs to match what's in the 100 field from your authority record. All right, one last question. In a personal name, author, title, series, what will be the first indicator in both the 490 field and the 800 field? So we've got 3 choices. First indicator 2, first indicator 4, or first indicator 1.
I'm getting C1.
All right, very good. And that is correct. So this series, this is a personal name, author, title, series. So that would be correct to have the first indicator of 1, assuming that the author's name has been established with a first indicator of a 1, because there are some authors' names that have a first indicator of a 0. So it would depend. So in this case, we're assuming that the author's name has been established, the standard format, last name, comma, first name. So that would be a 1. There are author title series that can be established under corporate body names, that can be established under conference names. So in that case, your first indicator in your 800, in your 8XX field would be different than what's in your 490. All right, you did very well. Good review. Are there any other questions before I stop sharing?
I don't see any other questions right now.
All right. I will stop sharing and turn it back over to Jennifer.
Thanks, Edie. All right, let me go ahead and share my screen. And then, can everyone see that before I go any further?
Yes, I'm seeing it.
Okay, perfect.
Yep.
All right, so I'm going to be going over the comics and graphic novel portion, and this was based on the Online with the CMC presentation, When Speech Bubbles and Pictures Collide, cataloging graphic novels, and that was presented Thursday, September 16th, 2021. So some basic notes, highlights that everyone we'd appreciate remembering. Do not use serial records or set records for graphic novels. Use only monographic records for the individual volume. There are some records in Share that do have multiple volumes on them, but we prefer that they be individual. Make sure that you use the free floating form subdivision delimiter V, comic book strips, etc., with all topical subject headings or with all topical headings. And use the following form headings for all graphic novels and comic book compilations, which is the 655 second indicator 7 delimiter A graphic novels with delimiter 2 LCGFT, and then same thing but with comics in parentheses graphic works delimiter 2 LCGFT. And then when you have a translated work which has been adapted, as is very common with graphic novels, especially those from Asia, enter the work under the person responsible for the adaptation and make an added entry for the original author. Okay, so question number 1. Does IHLS catalog a graphic novel as a single record or as a monographic set?
I'm getting a single.
Perfect, yes. We do single records. As it shows on our website for bibliographic records, use monographics or use individual for monographic records. Okay, question 2. In the content 6 field, what code indicates this work is a comic or graphic novel? A6, B, C, D, or D4?
I'm getting A6.
Perfect. Correct. So we use 6, which is for comics and graphic novels. Code B is used for bibliographies. Code D is for dictionaries, and there is no code 4 at this time. All right. Question 3. What wording do we use through the 300 field delimiter B to indicate illustrations? A, chiefly illustrations, B, chiefly color illustrations, or C, both A and B are acceptable?
I'm getting C's.
Good. So both A and B are acceptable. As was discussed in the presentation, there are no clear guidelines or corresponding quality statements in the change from AACR2 to RDA. So both options are acceptable. Just look at the item on hand, and if it is chiefly color, that's great, and you can indicate that, or if it's just chiefly illustrations, that's fine as well. And you can find more information at this website at the bottom of the slide, and like I will be doing with the previous slides, I will upload that and you can always access it. Okay, question number 4. Which 650 free-floating form subdivision is used when the item is a graphic novel or comic strip?
I'm getting C.
Good, yeah. We use the free-floating form subdivision, delimiter V, comic book strips, etc., with all topical headings. Okay. I believe this is the last one. What 2 655 genre forms are required when the work is a graphic novel?
Okay, I'm getting some different answers on this one. I've got a C and D, an A and C, looks like A and C, and A and D, but looks like mostly A and C.
Okay, good. So that's correct. It is A and C. We use the 2 form headings above for all graphic and comic book compilations. You can assign other genre headings from the LCGFT as appropriate. Okay, actually, last question now. The adapter of a graphic novel is placed in which field, the 100 or the 700?
I've got almost evenly split between 100s and 700s.
So the answer is 100. When a work has been adapted or translated, enter the work under the person responsible for the adaptation. Then we will do a 700 for the original author. Okay, so very good, everyone. Let me stop sharing my screen. Okay, so are there any questions about anything we covered today? Any questions for a specific staff member, CMC?
I'm not seeing any questions yet.
Okay, you can unmute yourself or you can put it in the chat. Do we have a raised hand though? Denise, did you have a question? Okay. Linda, Edie, Pam, any other comments, questions?
I don't have anything unless anybody has any questions.
I don't
Here's
have anything.
One popped up in the chat. Where do we access the 2 review handouts on series and graphic novels?
We will be putting those on L2 in the next little bit. Susan asked about an update on your CE hours. I am planning on compiling all that, and you should be getting an email from me in December. Edie, a question for you. Will OCLC generate the 300 you mentioned today as a macro?
I don't know that OCLC will generate a macro. I mean, you can put your own macros into OCLC. I don't know if they're standard. I don't know if they're standard macros put that in. I have a text string that I use.
Right, and then if everyone's good on questions or comments, our next training session will be Tuesday, January 11th of next year at 9 a.m. And we look forward to seeing everybody then. Have a wonderful day.
Thanks, everybody.
Oh, thanks. It's one of the ones Christine gave me, and I am